there, all my creative friends. This is Heidi with H2 Home Designs, and we are in the middle of the quarantine. I thought it would be a good idea to talk a little bit about creativity and inspiration during a quarantine. I've decided today to take a step outside, away from the television and away from the four walls, just to take in a little bit of fresh air, hear the birds chirping, and I thought it would be fun to talk to you about the 6 steps of the creative process that I walk through as I put together this little piece. So the first step in my creative process today is inspiration. Inspiration is something that mentally or emotionally stimulates us to do something or create something. Anytime we put together a project, we're almost always inspired by something to begin with. And my inspiration for this project comes from a place. For you, it might come from a song, it might come from a smell, it might come from a memory, but it's something that kind of energizes you and causes you to want to create and put something together. One of the most iconic things about my place of inspiration in northern Wisconsin is the cherry or the cherry orchard. Step number 2 in the creative process is the idea. And don't let the idea and the inspiration confuse you. An idea is the thing that you're actually going to make or create based on your inspiration. So you might be writing a play, or you might be composing music, or you might be painting a picture, all based on that thing that inspired you. So for today's project, I was inspired by a couple different things. First, just this environment. You can hear the birds chirping, and I'm actually just outside of a cherry orchard. It's a beautiful, beautiful location, and this is the location of many of my childhood summers. So for me, there's a lot of emotion involved. So there's emotion for me that causes inspiration. The location causes inspiration. The environment, the sounds themselves create inspiration. And then I have a lot of history here. Because my place of inspiration is such a wonderful touristy spot, my idea was, what if I could create a series of paintings on a found item that would tell the story of this place, tell the history of this place? And I thought, what if I do that in the form of maybe painted postcards or painted postage stamps? And that's when the creative juices really got flowing. So step number 3 in my creative process is research. And research can be fun. I really enjoy the research end of it, and you might be researching, number 1, your inspiration itself. What do I need to know more about this inspiration so that I can create this idea that I put together? You also want to do research on the medium that you're going to be using to put your project together. So for instance, I am using these old solid wood door panels. It's important for me to know a little bit about the wood itself, or at least the fact that it's considered a solid wood door panel. So it's wood through and through, so I don't have to worry too much about moisture and how that might impact my project. It's also going to be important to research the products or other medium that you're going to be using to actually put the whole project together. So for me, it's going to be paint, deciding what kind of paint I want to use. I am going for something that's got sort of a historical look. So how can I create a historical look in the project that I'm putting together? So those are all things that you need to be thinking about in the research step so that you can finally begin to put this idea together and know exactly how you're going to play it out. I decided that my first vintage postcard stamp painting would be of that iconic cherry blossom. And I'll tell you, I've never painted a cherry blossom in my life. So now it's time for my research. With the help of a few resources, I studied the shape and the composition of the cherry blossom and the cherry branch. I then studied different paints that would help me accomplish that vintage look that I was going for. And finally, I made sure I selected the right paintbrushes for the task. The next step in my creation process is called production, and this is the fun phase. This is the phase where we can get our hands dirty a little bit. It's the phase where we are taking this inspiration that we've created and put into the form of an idea, and then we're going to build something that actually expresses that idea for us. So I'm asking you to come along with me as I put together my project. I started by selecting a panel from a solid wood door for my backdrop. I then sanded it with some fine grit sandpaper to prepare it for the paint. Splashes of blues, greens, and white were used to create a soft background. I then painted the rather whimsical blossoms and branches. I then played with different styles of letters and numbers to come up with the postage cancellation stamp. I then penciled them on and then gave them some presents by painting them on with black paint. So at this stage, I'm feeling pretty good about my project. And so I decided to step into the next phase of creativity, and that is the critique and rework phase. And I'll tell you, this is a difficult phase sometimes, but it's a really important one, so make sure that you don't skip it. In this phase, we're going to take off our creative hat and we're going to put on our analytical hat. I want you to take a good look at the project that you put together and see where the flaws are. And once you see those flaws, go ahead and take some time to rework those flaws. And I have to be honest with you, it took me a couple of days to rework my flaws. I mentioned this is the first time I've ever painted cherry blossoms before, and it wasn't easy. But I worked and I didn't give up on it. After the critique and reworking of my project, I went back in and added a little bit of age to my painting. I did that through the use of waxes. I first covered the entire piece with a light wax, and then I went back and I added a dark wax to all those spots that I wanted to show some real age and character. Because you started with a layer of light wax, now you can add and you can take away that dark wax as much as you like until it's just perfect. And now it's time for the final step of the creative process, and that's called evaluation. Now step back from your project and decide for yourself, is this project a success or is it a failure? Take a few minutes to note your strengths and just make sure you incorporate those strengths into your next works. You also may want to note your weaknesses, and I know this isn't always easy to do, but if you know what your weaknesses are this time around, it'll be easier to avoid those in future projects that you put together. So I'm going to add one more step to this creative process, and that's presentation. Art is meant to be shared. Don't hide it, and I know I'm guilty of that. This art is an expression of you, and it's meant to be seen. So my encouragement to you today, whether you're in the middle of a quarantine or you've just had a really rough week, is to take some time to be inspired, to just close your eyes or take a drive and be inspired by the world around you and just see where it might lead you. Perhaps it'll lead you to an idea and then maybe onto a project that you could put together that it gives you the opportunity to do some expressing of yourself. Thank you so much for watching today, and as always, be the reason that someone smiles today. Take care. And for that fun little tidbit I told you I would share with you at the end of the video, I'm getting ready to participate in a challenge with some other creators. And we are going to be using social media to film the challenge. And I think it's something that you're really going to enjoy. I'm going to take a found item, send it to a creative friend, and ask that creative friend to build or create something for the home out of that item. She's going to be doing the same. I've actually sent her item off to her this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she's going to come up with. So we're going to be filming it all, and we would love to have you watch. Stay tuned with us, and we'll have lots more to come as time goes on. Thanks. More innovative and artful designs on YouTube at H2 Home Designs.